Hello, and welcome back to Doomed, an Arkham Horror the Living card game playthrough with a focus on roleplay and storytelling? I'm really happy to have you all back as we continue Zoey Samaras' journey through Return to the Dunwich Legacy. As always, if you'd like to get straight into the action, check out the timestamp below, and you can jump straight to the opening hand. Otherwise, quick recap, we'll preview what is to come today in Return to Blood on the Altar. Blood on the Altar. It sounds like something Zoey's either going to be really excited about or really apprehensive about. We'll find out very soon. Last time on Doomed, Zoey Samaras hopped on board the Essex County Express to head up to the village of Dunwich, where Dr. Henry Armitage told her that he and his colleagues had stopped a rampaging monster. He didn't really spell it out, but he implied that the rampaging monster is somehow connected to all of the strange happenings in Arkham. And they are very strange, but they are also quite disconnected. Zoey isn't an investigator. She's not a mystic. She's not... Well, she's an investigator, but she's not, a criminologist of any kind. She's having trouble connecting the dots between all of these different events. But she does know that if there is the truth, it must lie in Dunwich. So she hopped on the train. The train was, of course, assaulted by a spectral force, along with some cultists and a grappling, gooey, slimy beast. Zoey managed to chop up a whole bunch of these people, but was overcome by the mist. She was then transported beyond the veil, which, of course, is what she believes is hell. So she's gained a new weakness in her deck, which is not great. She was also delayed on her way to Dunwich. But once arrived, she's going to begin the hunt to see if she can find any of the kidnapped men, perhaps, kidnapped from Arkham, and any of the truth around what this beast is and why things have been so strange in Arkham. I say we hop right into it. Enough of this pre-show. I say we hop right into it and see what's going on in Return to Blood on the Altar. Hope you're all ready. Got your favorite drink? Let's get doomed. Scenario 4. Blood on the Altar. When you finally reach Dunwich, you're greeted by Zebulon Whately and Earl Sawyer, another man from the village who had met with Dr. Armitage during the incident several months ago. "Things ain't looking too good here," Earl tells you. "Some folk up and went missing a few nights ago. Dem whippoorwills won't shut up. Dunno what you're doing here, but last time you Arkham folk came round, it was bad news. Very bad news." His eyes blink rapidly, and he coughs and looks away. "Look, why don't you rest for the rest of the night and look for whatever it is you're looking for tomorrow?" Zebulon chimes in, putting a wrinkled hand on your shoulder. You begin to protest, but your aching muscles and weary mind won't allow you to refuse. The elderly man offers to take you in for the night and drives you to his home at the outskirts of Dunwich Village. The town is disheveled and eerie, and you find yourself wishing you hadn't come here at all. That doesn't last long for Zoey. She feels the wish. She says, "Oh, man, I wish I hadn't come here." And then she goes, "No, this is my destiny, to be here at Dunwich Village." You fall asleep on the ride over and scarcely remember anything else from that night. When you awaken, you find that Zebulon's house is abandoned, and there is no sign of the elderly man or of Mr. Sawyer. Fearing the worst, you head into the village of Dunwich to investigate, hoping to find answers. Now, before you ask, no, I'm not sure why Earl Sawyer and Zebulon Whately sound like they're from maybe Arkansas rather than Dunwich Village in Massachusetts. I'm not sure. You'll have to take it up with them. In terms of setup, I'll show the map here in a moment. I just want to point out that we are gathering the cards for each character who was kidnapped to form a face-down pile of potential sacrifices, along with Zebulon Whately and Earl Sawyer. If the investigators were delayed on their way to Dunwich, add a doom to Agenda 1A, so we're starting on a bit of a clock. If the O'Banian gang has a bone to pick with the investigators, seeking vengeance, the gang from the Clover Club has followed you to Dunwich. We're adding a set of gangsters into the encounter deck, along with, in Return to, we actually spawn a hired gun out there in the field already. They're hunting us. Not just whatever strange beast that Armitage and his colleagues defeated, not just whatever dark cult is kidnapping people in Dunwich and sacrificing them, but also some goons from Arkham itself. I mean, I suppose Zoe's actions are the things that led to the destruction of the Clover Club Lounge, but like only indirectly. It's not like she blew it up or something. Just a quick overview here of our map. You'll notice here's Zoe. Great art, as always. Here on the Village Commons. The Village Commons is connected to the schoolhouse. I don't think there's much school happening in the schoolhouse. It's also connected to Bishop's Brook and the Congregational Church. The Congregational Church and Bishop's Brook are then connected to Burned Ruins, so it forms sort of a bit of a square over on the left-hand side. And then on the right, there's Osborne's General Store, which is connected up to the house, back down to Bishop's Brook, but not to the Village Commons, so it's formed sort of a large triangle. The scenario instructed me to spawn a hired gun at an unconnected location, but it's a hunter, so, you know, it's coming for you. You'll also notice that there's 5 face-down cards, one next to each location. That was the instructed in the setup. I think it will explain to us what it is that we're hunting for once we read the act and the agenda, so I say we do that next. Agenda 1A, Strange Disappearances. Your welcome in Dunwich has been cold. Surprise! A string of disappearances has left the already aloof townsfolk on edge. Most of them look at you with distrust, and few are willing to help you in your investigation. Who knows what will happen if you don't find the location of the missing townsfolk soon? So, 6 doom, but we start on 1, so really we have 5 turns before we flip the agenda. Act 1A, Searching for Answers. The disappearances in town may be related to the events in Arkham. You suspect that something awful is afoot. You must find where the missing townsfolk are being held in order to unveil the conspiracy. Objective: when an investigator enters the hidden chamber, advance. Ooh, there's a hidden chamber somewhere in this village of Dunwich, and Zoe's going to have to find it, either through research, good old-fashioned knocking on doors and picking locks, or perhaps some faith. So Zoe starts with her 5 resources: 1 physical trauma from taking on the mists in the Essex County Express, and 2 mental trauma from having been defeated by horror in the Clover Club Lounge, and from having not been able to smite the wicked in the Clover Club Lounge. Because there are enemies out there already, I am thinking that Zoe's going to want to have a weapon, first and foremost. That sounds like a good shout. Let's do it. Let's get ready to draw our opening hand. Zoe, I believe in you. This is your element. Creepy village, people who don't trust you, guided only by your own faith, your own unshakable, raw will. This is what you do best. Let's go for it. Let's get doomed. Drawing an opening hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as I've mentioned on every previous episode, and I'll mention it again here. Because Arkham is a famously sort of difficult game, and it's meant to be that way for story purposes, you have a rather generous mulligan. You can toss back any cards that you don't want and draw back up to 5 without reshuffling the cards that you drop. So I don't want Say Your Prayers, I don't want Dodge. I like the clues, I like the weapon, and I think I'm going to keep something worth fighting for, and hopefully we'll draw some economy so that we'll be able to play it down. So we'll keep 3 and draw 2. Have a Vigilant, Scene of the Crime. Fantastic. Zoe hops off the train, fresh-faced as a daisy, here in the sordid Dunwich Village. No, not at all. Zoe slept like a rock, but her dreams were uneasy. The voice of her lord has been fainter of late. She has been turning away from him, seeing as how he hasn't been able to help her too much so far in this investigation. Is this a crisis of faith, or is this just Zoe discovering that she can do what she needs to do on her own? Let's reveal the location that we're at here. This is the Village Commons, Silent Decay. It is hard to prevent the impression of a faint, malign odor about the village street, as of the massed mold and decay of centuries. This is a 3 shroud 0 clue location. It's a central Dunwich location. Each investigator at Village Commons can't take draw or resource actions, so because there's no one here in the Village Commons to help you, you can't draw, you can't take resources or draw cards for actions. However, action, resign. This is suicide! We're better off hiding out the night. Don't see why that would be necessary yet, but there is a resign option. Good to know. Alright, well, Zoey is more or less ready to just sort of head off into the reeds immediately and try to deal with the things that are coming her way. Despite the horror that she experienced on the train, she did have a night of sleep. Zoey is always vigilant. Play up to 3 assets from your hand, reducing the resource cost of each by 1. She's got her machete, her very trusty machete, play for 2, and something worth fighting for. She does have something worth fighting for now. Her own sense of self, perhaps even divorced from the voice of her god. She also has her keen eye, which feels pretty good. So that was our first action. Our second action, we need to find the hidden chamber, and I don't really know what that means. So we're going to not go towards the hired gun. We're going to see if we can surprise him a little later on. Naturally, Zoey is drawn immediately towards talk of the Congregational Church. I myself did not more than a fortnight ago catch a very plain discourse of evil powers in the hill behind my house, wherein there were a rattling and rolling, groaning, screeching, and hissing, such as no things of this earth could raise up. Sounds like the best rock concert I've ever heard of. Now, it's an abandoned church, but Zoey is going to test her faith and see if there's maybe something here at the church that will help her. So she's going to head over to the Congregational Church. This is a 2 shroud 1 clue location. Choose and discard a card from your hand to gain 2 resources. That's not bad. I don't have anything I want to discard right now. Free trigger. If there are no clues here, draw the encounter card underneath the Congregational Church once per game. So this is how we're going to discover where the hidden chamber is. The hidden chamber is one of these 5 cards, and if you discover all the clues on a location, you can draw it free of charge. Although 3 of them, I know from having put the set together, 3 of them are encounter cards, so they could be enemies or they could be treacheries. Now that I'm here, I want to just kind of grab this clue, but I really don't want to use Drawn to the Flame. I could see the crime next turn for a free clue, so maybe I just draw a card? If I draw, I'm gonna probably draw. If I draw, I'm probably gonna draw a weakness. Or do we want to just continue and see if we can grab a 2 clue location? That also makes sense to me. Yeah, let's do that. And then we can see the crime if we need to. Zoey glances in at the ruined Congregational Church, sees that there might be something in there, but she is drawn even further afield. She's just trying to get a feel for Dunwich Village. Where should she begin her investigation? Also, at the same time, I don't want to backtrack. Talking myself out of it. If I test and fail, I might add a clue to the location. Yeah, you know what? We're going to try it. So, just stepping into the church, Zoey feels somewhat at home despite the decay and the terrible kind of rot that is set in there. However, she's just going to see what she can find by picking around. There's clearly not much left here, but, you know, she's going to try. First draw of the game, 2 intellect versus 2 shroud. It's a tablet, -2, so that's a big fail. We call that a big fail in the biz. That's the end of the investigation phase. In the enemy phase, hunter enemies, hunt. This hired gun says, each criminal enemy, including hired gun, gains hunter, prey, most resources. They're coming after the rich one. They're coming after me. Not particularly rich right now. Each copy of hunted down gains peril and surge, which I don't like. He has to hunt in the direction that is closest to Zoey. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Guess they're all the same distance away. I'm going to put him here in Bishop's Brook as he hunts down this way. And that's that. Okay, so he's hunted. He's coming towards us, but hopefully we'll be able to get him. In the upkeep phase, we draw a flashlight. Cha-cha! That's obviously really useful. Especially on a 2-shroud location. In the mythos phase, we'll also reset our little tokens here. In the mythos phase, we're going to add a doom. We're going to draw our first encounter card of the game. Feels good to be back. I'm going to eat those words in about 10 minutes or so. Sorted and Silent. Attach Sorted and Silent to your location. Look at this art. Just like a bunch of rural, like, villagers just like, what are you doing here? Forced. At the end of the round, each investigator at the location takes a horror. When the agenda advances, discard Sorted and Silent. So, Congregational Church, whether or not there's actually villagers there, Zoey gets the feeling that she is being watched by 100 eyes, unfriendly ones. She knows she needs to get out of here really soon. It's starting to catch her mind a little bit. So, so just to clarify, if we're here at the Congregational Church, at the end of the round, we take a horror. I'd really rather not be, so what I'd love to do is, my plan is to put down the flashlight, grab this clue, and keep moving. Trouble is, if I move, I'm gonna hit the hired gun. That's okay. That is okay. Yeah, that's fine. So back in the investigation phase, Zoey was picking through some of the rubble, and now that she feels the eyes on her, she knows she is gonna need some sort of defense against them. She has her machete, but of course the best defense against the darkness is the light. So she pulls out her flashlight and is going to take a look around with it. I'm using a flashlight charge, which reduces the shroud to 0. Okay, I pulled a 0 anyway, so that's fine. But we get the clue. Hooray! It's one of those interesting things I find about Arkham, where the higher your intellect, the more likely you are to succeed at investigating a location, because you generally test your intellect against the shroud of the location. Much as when you fight, you test your combat against the combat of the enemy that you're fighting. However, if you can reduce shroud, that's the same as boosting your intellect, right? Almost. If you can reduce the shroud to 0, your intellect can never drop below 0, so you'll always pass, except if some thing, like the tentacle token, causes you to fail. Zoey, looking around in the church... Oh, actually, before I leave here, I think I know what I need to do. Zoey's looking around with the flashlight and catches sight of a dusty old trap door in the corner of the Congregational Church. It's been partially covered by rubble. The dust is only over top of part of the trapdoor, if that makes sense. There's some footprints leading up to the edge of the trapdoor. She's going to investigate. Free trigger. If there are no clues, draw the encounter card. This is obviously kind of scary, because if I draw something I can't deal with, we're in trouble, but we're gonna, we need to try. Free trigger. Strange signs. Uh-oh. Moving over to the trapdoor, she really, truly believes it could lead to another location. Instead, as she touches it, the brilliant golden sun, somewhat clouded at this time of day, instead turns blood red almost instantly. Test Intellect 3. It's an omen, by the way, which I love. If you fail, add a clue to your location. 2 clues if there are 3 or 4 investigators. Test Book 3. If you fail, add a clue to your location. Oh yeah. Okay, nothing to be done there. This is the tentacle token. Good old friend, the tentacle token, which is an auto fail. Straight up. So we're going to add a clue to our location, which is fine because we don't actually need one right now. Zoey's not sure if this note is meant for her, and instead of trying to investigate further and find out, she's going to leave. Those eyes watching her are really starting to frighten her a little bit, so she's going to head down, last action, to these burned ruins. Oh. Burned ruins. 2 shroud, 3 clues. Straight 3. After you fail a skill test while investigating the burned ruins, flip a clue token on the burned ruins to its doom side. I should point out, when you buy the card game Arkham Horror, the clue tokens are also the Doom tokens. They're like double-sided. On Tabletop Simulator here, they are separate tokens, but we'll remember what that means. So ideally, we won't test. We won't do anything to have to test our intellect here if we can help it. Zoey's. Oh, did I even read the flavor text? I did not. Let's read it. It is not reassuring to see on a closer glance that most of the houses are deserted or falling to ruin. Yeah, it's definitely not good to see that. Zoey's left the Congregational Church and headed to the outskirts of the town. Not the outskirts where she slept last night, but the other side, where there are some burned ruins. Now, the villagers, of course, won't tell her whether, well, anything at all, but they definitely won't tell her whether these were burned deliberately or accidentally or how long ago. She's left on her own. As she stands looking at the ruins, trying to figure out what to make of them, and before wanting to head in, suddenly a snapping branch behind her turns around, and there's a large man with a face like a gorilla. The Albanians send their regards. Now again, you might be asking, why would Chicago gangsters be living in Arkham, Massachusetts? And I would say, mind your own business. So each criminal enemy gains Hunter, so he's hunting. And in the enemy phase, he steps in behind her and raises his Tommy gun and begins to fire. Zoey leaps out of the way. We're taking a damage and a horror. I'm putting them both on me. She's absolutely incredulous that the Albanians would have followed her here. She's never been involved in the criminal underworld before. Like, she's not, I mean, she is a zealot, but she's a zealot that destroys creatures of darkness. She doesn't break up organized crime. It's a sin, and she would if she could, but that's not her jam. And the fact that they've pursued her here is really shocking. I'm getting a resource because I become engaged with an enemy, this hired gun. That's Zoey's special ability, after all. And he does us a damage and a horror, which I put on me. In the upkeep phase, we draw a card. It's a vicious blow, which I'm going to keep that if I can. And we move to the mythos phase, where I sure hope to not screw the pooch. We go to 3 out of 6 Doom, and we draw an encounter card. On Wings of Darkness. This is a bad one. A night gaunt swoops down from the sky and grabs you with its clawed hands, carrying you off into the night. What the hell? This is Zoey going, what? First of all, there's thugs from the city that somehow followed me up here to Dunwich to, what, get money back? Get reparations? Seek revenge? And now these faceless, winged, leathery creatures are swooping down from the sky? Like, what is even going on? Test Agility 4. If you fail, take a damage and a horror, disengage with each non-Night Gaunt enemy, and move to a central location. We're testing Agility 4. There's absolutely nothing I can do, and frankly, there's nothing I want to do here. We're taking it on the chin. Big fail, nothing to be done. Zoey dives out of the way of the hired gun, but right into the claws of a screaming beast that whisks her up into the air. Now, if Zoey had her wits about her, or in a different universe, she might even be thankful. It's gotten her away from this goon who's now sitting at the burned ruins. But of course, Zoey doesn't necessarily feel particularly happy about that. She manages to wriggle out of its grasp as she flies over the village commons and is dropped back onto the ground. Her leg is slightly bashed up, and, you know, she is a bit shaken by the experience. So I took a damage, I put it on me. I took a horror, I put it on something worth fighting for. I am a little surprised. I had forgotten that that encounter set was in the deck, and that kind of screws the pooch for the whole plan here. Okay, reevaluating. We could move, go after the hired gun again, start chopping, take more damage, more horror, scene of the crime next turn, grab some of the clues there. We could also leave him for now and just go and investigate the other locations and hope that they're, like, you know, easier to clear or whatever, which might be nice. Maybe we can have a few more cards in the meantime. We can also probably just run rings around this guy by going kind of in opposite directions. Yeah, we might even be able to do that, actually. So let's not go back for now. Hopefully that's not the place that we need. Zoey dropped from the claws of a beast. She looks up, she kind of sees it disappearing into the clouds, but she thinks to herself, like, is this even real? Who was that man? What was that thing? She's not going back that way, that's for sure. There's a schoolhouse just to the north of the commons. With its crumbling rooftop and rat-infested walls, this is hardly even a house, let alone a schoolhouse. This is hardly even a house. 4 shroud and 1 clue. You cannot commit skill cards to skill tests in the schoolhouse. That's not good. If there are no clues here, draw the encounter card underneath schoolhouse. This is, I think, a great location for a free clue, which means I'm going to try to scene of the crime here. If I draw and it's amnesia, that's going to be really bad. If I take a resource, we can just take resources, but that's kind of silly as well. I'm debating what to do here because from the player perspective, I don't want to just run around kind of wasting actions moving when I would have to then move back to try to tackle the things. But scene of the crime is free clues, but you have to play it first action. So you have to be ready and set up. Drawn to the Flame is great, but it discovers you 2 clues, so I don't want to waste it on a 1 clue location if I can help it. From Zoey's perspective, she's looking around this schoolhouse going, what the hell happened here? Rat-infested walls. I mean, they've clearly let it, you know, decay into almost nothingness. I'd like to try doing something here, so I think what I'm going to do is draw second action, see what I can deal with. Take the initiative, great. Third action, resource. So it feels a bit silly to just sit in one location and draw cards and take resources, but we're set up to get the clue on this location next turn. In the enemy phase, so he doesn't know what happened to the hired gun, but he's still out there. He's on our trail back to the Congregational Church, where I would hope that Sordid and Silent would kill him, but it won't. Just too bad. And in the upkeep phase, I'm going to draw a card and then gain a resource. And I'm hoping it's... That's great, actually. That's totally great. A Desperate Search. Oh yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, great. Phew. Back to the mythos phase. So he's getting ready to do some serious investigating. We move to 4 out of 6 Doom, and we draw our encounter card. Something I can deal with? Hunted Down, which I will read in a moment, but it also, because Hired Gun is in play, it says it gains Peril and Surge. Peril means I can't discuss it with my teammates. Zoey's on her own, though, so I think we're okay in that sense. It also gains Surge, which means I have to draw another card after this one. If there are 1 or more unengaged criminal enemies in play, each of them moves a location towards you. Each criminal enemy that engages you makes an immediate attack. So, Hunted Down. This this goon, he is not backing off. He is coming for Zoey, and he's not joking around. He spies that she was at the Congregational Church and manages to trace her back to the village commons. Now, of course, he's also pretty shocked. What was that thing that grabbed her and, you know, dragged her away? But he's got a job to do, and frankly, I think this guy's, well, he's not an academic. Let me put it that way. This also gains Surge because the hired gun is in play. Servant of Many Mouths. Oh, I love that. 3 fight, 2 health, 1 evade. It spawns at any empty location, and it has Retaliate. After you defeat it, discover a clue at any location. I'm going to put him here at the store because I want to try to go and get him. Zoey is rummaging around in the schoolhouse here. It's interesting because the mythos phase is the time when you are confronted with the, you know, tactics of the mythos. What are they going to try to do to you to keep you away from their nefarious schemes, their agendas? So he doesn't even know what's going on in Dunwich. let alone that there might be a cult sacrificing people. She just knows that Zebulon and Earl are gone. Francis Morgan and Warren Rice were both kidnapped as well, but who's to say they're even here? Although they were, colleagues of Armitage here at Dunwich in the past, so there's that. She doesn't know that the O'Banion gang is on the hunt for her and pretty much right behind her. She also doesn't know that whatever dark power the cult in the village serves, the servant of many mouths is ready to hopefully not divulge any of its secrets. However, it's the investigation phase. I'm always tempted to take skill tests and stuff, but let's do this the right way, I think. Poking around the schoolhouse further, it becomes clear that this room wasn't just abandoned for lack of interest or lack of students or just because of the decay. It becomes clear that something truly awful happened in the classroom. Zoey, looking around, seeing the chew marks on all of the desk legs, chair legs, in the walls, and hearing the scurrying of rats, kind of assumes that rats have taken up residence here, but she starts to see little bits and pieces of skeleton littered around. The scene of the crime tells her that perhaps this wave of rats that overtook the school is not natural. However, it gains us a clue. Well, it costs 2. I have to pay 2 to play it. Play only as your first action. Discover a clue at your location. Doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity. Boom! First action. Get a clue. Love it. Free trigger. We're going to see what's here, and hopefully it is not that bad. Free trigger. Draw the encounter card underneath the schoolhouse. What's this? It's the key to the chamber. This tarnished silver key was hidden and kept safe out of sight. It must lead to somewhere important. Revelation, take control of it. Free trigger. If the hidden chamber is connected to your location, attach key to the chamber to the hidden chamber. Zoey, in amongst her investigating of what looks to be perhaps some sort of cover-up of the horrific death of several students and teachers from a swarm of rats, discovers a key tucked away safely in one of the corners. It doesn't look disused. Old maybe, tarnished maybe, but certainly still in working order. It must lead somewhere important. And it would be hidden here at a place that no one would dare go. So we've got the key to the chamber. Feels good. Second action, Zoey is going to leave this place and, hopefully not sort of mess it up. She's heading over to Osborne's general store. From the air of hushed fright at Osborne's store, they knew something hideous had happened. Interesting. Okay, the order in which this happens. We reveal our location. It's a 3-shroud, 1-clue location. Spend a resource to search the top 3 cards of your deck for an item. Add it to your hand, shuffle your deck, so you can search the store to try to find something of value. I don't have too many items in this deck, so it doesn't feel great to try to do this. 3 shroud, 1 clue. However, she felt Osborne's store, there were a few people in here discussing something in hushed voices. They all look up and stare at her as she comes in. Heading around the back of Osborne's general store, creeped out by those inside, there's a man standing there with a pitchfork. He raises it in defiance, and he snarls at her, "You will never make me divulge the truth." So we get this Servant of Many Mouths, gives us a resource for becoming engaged with an opponent. He charges Zoey with his pitchfork. Again, Zoey's not a trained fighter, but she's going to raise her machete in defense. And we're going to fight him. You get +1 combat for this attack. If the attacked enemy is the only enemy engaged with you, it deals +1 damage. Cuts through vines, underbrush, and tentacles equally well. Or, in this case, the arms and face of a crazed madman. Zoey is fighting, trying to defend herself here. So I have 4 combat, 5 with the machete versus the 3 of the Servant of Many Mouths. Yeah. Ooh. Big fail. Not great. Doesn't have retaliate. Oh, he does have retaliate. Oh, no! Oh, no. Okay. Well, we take two. Oh, God, that's actually... Oh, God. Okay. Well, there is a -4 in the bag, so it's unlikely I would have been able... I would have boosted maybe by 1. So, it's okay. The man, nimbly, for his apparent age, sidesteps her slash and manages to jab the pitchfork into her side, pinning her to the ground. As his rough breath draws close to her, he just snarls, "I'll never tell you anything. I'll never tell you anything." In the enemy phase, hunter enemies hunt. This hired gun is right on our tail. He's in the schoolhouse. And then engaged enemies attack. 2 more damage goes on Zoey. He's cutting her body with a small knife that he's produced. He's, I'm not sure, trying to bleed her to death. In upkeep, we draw a card. It's a dodge. I mean, I'll take it now. Like, I wish I had had it before. Take a resource. And we move back to the mythos phase. We're getting there, folks. We have the key, but we're also getting punked by this servant of many mouths. So sad. Zoey's a fighter. So sad. Draw an encounter card. Rotting Remains. Test Will 3. For each point you fail by, take a horror. As Zoey is being slashed by this man, she rolls over to try to get away, and just behind Osborne's general store, what she thought was a pile of firewood, she can see a small hand sticking out from underneath. Flies are starting to congregate. What the hell happened here? Yeah. Am I going to take the initiative on this to prevent horror? I mean, damage is really the big issue here right now. Yeah, we're just going to take the test. 4v3. So I fail by 2, which means I take 2 horror. 1 goes on something worth fighting for. 1 goes on me. And we move back to the investigation phase, where I am going to chop this guy a new one. Let's go. Zoey is horrified momentarily, allowing the servant of many mouths, this man, to continue to pin her to the ground. But suddenly she gets some renewed confidence. She realizes she can't just react to the things that are happening here in the village. She needs to be the one to get the answers that she needs by force if necessary. We're going to fight again. I'm fighting at a 5 with the machete, plus 3 wild icons from Take the Initiative. So that's an 8 versus 3. Okay, it's a -2, so great. Zoey, suddenly emboldened by her decision to be the force that will get answers, manages to hack back at the servant of many mouths. And the man suddenly seems old and frail once more as he lies dying on the ground. Discover a clue at any location. Well, I'm going to grab the one off this location so I can just grab it right away. As the man's fingers start to curl inwards, she sees him motioning towards a small pit dug next to the rotting remains behind the store. It's covered with a tarp, but he's motioning towards it violently, like, stay away from there, stay away from there. So we defeated the servant of many mouths. We discovered a clue at any location. Hooray! Now that we have the clue, I think we're going to grab this spot, and hopefully it's the thing that we need. If there are no clues here, draw the encounter card. Free trigger. Oh, it's... uh-oh. Eager for Death. Test Will 2. Increase this skill test difficulty by 1 for each damage on you. If you fail, take 2 horror. If they can catch the fleeing soul when it leaves the body, they instantly flutter away, chittering in demonic laughter. Now, the art shows a bunch of the whippoorwills staring at you. I think it's more that Servant of Many Mouths, clearly with his dying breath, tricked Zoey. The huge amount of blood loss she suffered from fighting this man has led her to start seeing things. As she uncovers the pit, a burst of insects screaming ghosts race out of the pit before her, and her mind is reeling as she stumbles backwards. Test will 2 increase the skill test difficulty by 1 for each damage on you. Well, I have 7 damage, so I'm testing will 9. How does this happen? How does this happen? This is absolutely wild. I'm taking 2 horror because there's really nothing to be done. I can't boost my will or anything, so I'm not even gonna bother. Yeah. Skull, -1 for each location with no encounter card underneath it. That's 3 currently. So we would have failed anyway. I mean, this is nothing to be done there. It's the traumatic experience of being attacked by this man truly has unhinged her. I have to take 2 horror. 1 goes on me, and 1 destroys something worth fighting for. Zoey runs screaming away from the general store. Her will to survive, her will to be away from her god is fleeing her very, very quickly. Second action, we're going to move, keep the hired gun off our backs. We're going to Bishop's Brook. 3 shroud, 2 clues. If there is an investigator at Bishop's Brook, other investigators cannot enter Bishop's Brook. In a solo game, this is blank, which is great. I mean, it's not blank, but you know what I mean. Last action, do we dare? Do we dare just fight the mythos? If I draw something that gives me horror, I'm dead. What I'd like to do is just draw into the flame here. Get the clues, flip the thing. It's probably better to do that next turn. So I think last action... I haven't seen any weaknesses, though. Drawn to the flame is much more effective. The only problem is if I take any more horror, I'm dead. I have a bit more horror soak in the deck, and ways of healing horror in the deck. If I draw, I still have 3 weaknesses. 2 of them are going to be super bad news. So the question is, do I want to draw and potentially lose either my hand or the ability to win the scenario, or do I not want to draw and just work with what I have? I think I need to work with what I have. If I flashlight here, I'll be a 2 against 1. You know what? No risk, no reward, right? This is classic Zoey. She's rushed away from the general store. Her mind is fraying. She's dragging blood everywhere. And she reaches Bishop's Brook, which I don't think I actually read the flavor text for. One dreads to trust the tenebrous tunnel of the bridge, yet there is no way to avoid it. She's looking around wildly, trying to spot anything that could help her. We're going to draw into the flame, and I'm definitely going to regret this. Draw the top card of the encounter deck. Rotting Remains. Yeah. Although, I mean, maybe I'll pass. I just can't fail. I just can't fail. I really wanted to keep the dodge. But I think I'm going to have to toss it in to go at least 2 up. Oh, good, I have nice dramatic music for this moment. As she runs screaming towards Bishop's Brook, she trips over again what she thought was maybe just a pile of rocks covered in a sheet, but the flies and the stench of flesh and blood tells her that maybe that's not quite what it is. And unblinking, one eyeball stares up at her from next to the sheet. Testing 5v3. Cultist -2. Yes, Zoey. Okay. Then discover 2 clues at your location. Now, I'm really pushing my luck if I draw the encounter card now. Where am I? Yeah, because if it's like a sword and silent or whatever, I'm dead. So we're gonna leave that encounter card there. In the enemy phase, guess who's right behind us? The hired gun. For story purposes, he's following us through to the general store. He's like questioning the villagers, like, "Hey, did you see a lady go this way?" I don't know, a big bloody knife, crazed look in her eye. And you like point him around the back where he goes and he starts examining all the blood on the lawn, the corpse of the man. Upkeep. Draw a card. Zoey's Cross. Couldn't be happier about that. That's great. I'm gonna be able to take on this guy. Oh, okay, good. Phew. I mean, you know, I say that now. Let's see how that goes. In the mythos phase, we go to 6 out of 6 doom. So we're advancing the agenda, which discards Sordid and Silent. Whippoorwills gather along the gambrel roofs of Dunwich and begin to shriek in jubilation. The people of Dunwich believe that the presence of whippoorwills foreshadows someone's imminent death. Do they long for your death? Or is the victim someone else? Zoey obviously thinks it's her. She's the hero of this story. She's the guiding light that is currently bleeding out on the grass. If there are 3 or more potential sacrifices, there are. Choose one at random and place it underneath the agenda deck without looking at it. Oh no! Shuffle, 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 shuffle. That person, whoever it is, I believe they've been sacrificed. Agenda 2A. The Old One's Hunger. As the sun sets, the frightened townsfolk retreat into their homes and lock their doors. It's clear to you that many of them know more than they're letting on. A sickening feeling turns over in your stomach as the village's true nature becomes clear. 6 doom. And we need to draw an encounter card. I can't resign here, so I'm just going to see if this kills me. It does not. It's an aloof hunter. Each investigator at my location gets -1 to each of their skills. It is vowed that the It is vowed that the birds are psychopomps lying in wait for the souls of the dying. We've seen whippoorwills before. That horrible creature at the university! But they are everywhere here. They were shrieking in the village, and a few of them have started following Zoey, drawing a lot of attention to her. It's aloof. It just kind of sits there. Now, what's nice is that with the cross, if I engage it, I can just kill it immediately, which is great. But the question now, I believe, is what are we going to do? We have the key. We have very little health and sanity remaining. If I manage to find the hidden chamber, am I going to be able to accomplish whatever I need to do? I could also resign and save myself the trauma. Because here's the thing. If I don't get ahead of the hired gun, he's going to come and he's going to cut me up. I can fight him, and I actually feel pretty good about my ability to fight the hired gun. So perhaps I should actually deal with him and hopefully draw into some horror soak. The problem is, what if I just tank a treachery that kills me? Zoey's not thinking all these things. She's only thinking about the pain and the horror of watching these birds caw for her death at Bishopsbrook. From a game standpoint. We have to find the hidden chamber. If it's this card that's underneath my location, then I've done it, and I can enter because I have the key. And then something else happens. If it is not, I'm probably going to end up taking some horror, which is terrible. So I can also just resign. I can just go to the village commons and resign. But I feel like I want to at least try to deal with the enemies in front of me because, yeah, I mean, no risk, no reward, right? I think it's going to be a better story. Investigation phase. Zoey feels the weight of the cross around her neck. She sees, well, she doesn't see anything yet. She feels the weight of the cross around her neck. My hope is walk in, kill the hired gun. But potentially, if this is, I should check. I need to check. If there are no clues, draw the encounter card. I need to see what it is. Zoey grabs her heavy cross from beneath her shirt and starts to hold it out in front of her very shakily. She's almost dead after all. Well, she's almost dead. She's certainly hurt. She hopes that it will protect her against whatever is lurking just on the other side of this bridge. Let's draw the card. It's the hidden chamber! Yes. Put the hidden chamber into play. It was 1 out of 2, so actually I feel... Okay. The hidden chamber and the location from where it was drawn, or which it was drawn, is connected to one another. The door to the hidden chamber is locked. You cannot enter it unless the key is attached to the chamber. I have the key. I can attach it for free. I will do so. And now I can enter the chamber. However, do I want to do so yet? No, we have someone on our tail. As soon as Zoey grips the cross and holds it out in front of her, it almost feels like it's pulling her to the left. Behind a small copse of trees, what looks to be almost a mound of earth, there's a door built into the side of it. She can't believe her eyes. This is where the hidden chamber's been the whole time? There's an ornate lock on the door, but the key fits perfectly into it. Zoey has been doubting that her god has guided her, but as soon as she grabbed the cross, she found what she needed. Burning with a righteous fury, she knows what needs to be done. Second action, she's going to turn around and walk back to the general store. Something in the cross is telling her that that's where she needs to go back to deal with an obstacle to her investigation. She sees that same goon from before. He's bending over the pile of corpses, but also the fresh corpse that Zoey dispatched. She manages to sneak up behind him and smacks him over the head with the butt of her machete, knocking him onto the ground. She kicks his gun away, and they begin to tussle. That's 1 damage. When an enemy becomes engaged with you, exhaust the cross and spend a resource to deal the damage. So she's managed to sneak up on this guy. Now that his gun is no longer with him, he's a big dude, but Zoey is possessed by something. We're going to take our last action to chop like nobody's business. He has 3 fight. We have 4 combat, 5 with the machete, 6 with the vicious blow, 7 with the kunai. Take the -4 out of the bag. I don't want to fail, so I'm going to do that. We're fighting at an 8 versus 4 in order to do the 3 damage and kill the hired gun. +1, huge, massive overkill. She thinks that this guy is going to put up more of a struggle. As she lands on top of him, he almost just goes limp, accepting his fate. Zoey doesn't really know what to make of this, but brings the machete down on his neck anyway. The hired gun is dead. Okay. In the enemy phase, the whippoorwill hunts into our location, but again, it's aloof, so it's just kind of sitting there cawing at us, mocking us! And then in the upkeep phase, we ready our tokens, we ready Zoey's cross, and we're ready to take on whatever's in there, and I don't feel good about that. Drawing a card, it's Amnesia. Amnesia says choose and discard all but 1 from your hand, so I only have the Desperate Search. Seeing the corpse of the man in front of her next to the other corpse of the other man that she also destroyed earlier today, she gets a wave of, well, anxiety, discomfort. What the hell am I doing here? But she shakes that off quickly. She points her machete towards the birds, and she says, "You're next," and starts to leave the clearing. Mythos phase. 1 doom of 6. And my encounter card is something terrible. It's a Servant of Many Mouths. Spawns at any empty location. Okay, so in fact, nothing, thankfully. I'm actually going to spawn it over here, but it doesn't matter. The Servant of Many Mouths, Zoey doesn't realize that there are other cultists living in this. I mean, she figures there's other people serving some sort of dark cult here in this village. She doesn't know exactly what to make of that, but it doesn't really matter. She knows what she needs to do. The hidden chamber lies in wait for her. First action, move to Bishop's Brook. Second action, move into the hidden chamber. You cannot enter the hidden chamber unless the key to the chamber is attached to the chamber, which it is. So I'm going to do that. Oh, well, I managed to make it past the first act, so, you know. You find your way into the hidden chamber where you believe the missing folk are being held. but the horrors that confront you there fray the edges of your sanity. Yep. Bound by chains in a secluded corner of this room or barrow is an unspeakable creature with the face of a man. It wheezes and wrestles to free itself as it notices your entrance. The many mouths covering the creature's body are covered in blood and gristles of meat, as though it were feeding recently. With a hideous croak, the creature speaks with 7 mouths. Then it lurches forward as though to grab you, and several of its chains snap. Reveal each unrevealed location. They're all revealed, I'm pretty sure. They're all revealed. Move all clues in play, including those on each investigator, to the hidden chamber. Spawn the set-aside Silas Bishop enemy in the hidden chamber. So we have to put all of the clues on it. That's 4 that are in play. I always felt that this was really, like, cheap, frankly, to put all of the clues in play on the hidden chamber, because then that's just so many. Especially in solo. How are you supposed to scoop up that many clues? Like, it's wild. So we've moved all of the clues in play, including those on each investigator, to the hidden chamber. Spawn the set-aside Silas Bishop enemy in the hidden chamber. Ta-da! Okay. He's... Oh, let's look at this guy. That is a horrible, fleshy beast. He is a 3 fight enemy with 6 health, 7 evade, so you're not getting away from him, that's for sure. Massive. But Silas Bishop cannot make attacks of opportunity, which means if you move, if you play cards, you can't do anything. What walked on the mountains that May night? What Rougemas horror fastened itself on the world in half-human flesh and blood? But he does hit for 2 combat, he hits for 2 health and 2 sanity, which is adorable. Silas Bishop is a massive monster abomination and elite enemy. Massive, I think I've mentioned a few times, it's a keyword. They take up the whole location. So they're engaged with each investigator at the location, but they're not just in one person's threat area. I'm going to keep Silas in my threat area because it's just me playing. But typically, that means that they are attacking everyone at the same time. But you can sort of evade it on behalf of other people. You can hit it on behalf of other people, that sort of thing. However, he can't make attacks of opportunity. Zoey is confronted with this awful beast, immediately gains a resource from becoming engaged with it, and immediately shoves the cross towards it. It howls in pain as its flesh sears. I should read the act before moving on. Act 2A, The Chamber of the Beast. The pitiful beast lunges to grab you with its slimy arms, its many jaws snapping in hunger. Killing it would be merciful. But perhaps there's something else to discover about this creature. Objective: if there are no clues, advance. If Silas Bishop is defeated, resolution 1. So we have a choice. We can either try to kill this beast, or we can try to discover, 9 clues on a 3-shroud location. Zoey is a simple kind of person. She loves to investigate things, but what she really loves is chopping up beasts in the name of her lord, so that's going to be her deal. However, more importantly, I would say, we're going to not take a hit this turn. We're going to walk out. At the end of the investigation phase, Zoey's thrown the cross out towards the beast and stumbles back out of the hidden chamber. It roars, but can't follow her. In the enemy phase, the whippoorwill hunts to the location, which is, like, not great, but we're hoping to kill this guy next turn. We're hoping to just destroy Silas Bishop, which is, like, so terrible. The cross readies, we draw a card and gain a resource. It's prepared for the worst. We are prepared for the worst. This is the worst, having 2 health and 1 sanity remaining, going into a mythos phase. Ugh, this is the thing. If we can survive whatever the mythos throws at us right now, after having discovered Silas Bishop, after having found the hidden chamber, then we're going to be in a pretty good position to walk in and chop him up and win. Well, finish the scenario. Win. Do you ever really win Arkham Horror? Resurgent Evils. Peril. It's my choice. Either draw the top 2 cards of the encounter deck or place a doom on the agenda. This is a no-brainer. The evil in the hidden chamber causes Zoe's mind to race and reel as she realizes that what this cult in the village must be doing is feeding creatures to this thing. Now, why is beyond her. Why are they keeping it chained up? Was it once human? Doom on the agenda. No problem. Didn't have surge, so we're back to the investigation phase. And Zoe looks back up and into the hidden chamber. She knows that there are going to be the other kidnapped people there. Or at least that's what she thinks. Whether or not they are still alive, she knows she needs to find out. So, first thing, she's got her keen eye ready. I'm going to spend 4 resources to get +2 combat until the end of the phase. So that sets my, well, my base combat is 4, but I have +2. First action, we're walking back into the hidden chamber. Silas Bishop engages us, and then we spend the resource on the cross. Zoe once again holds out the cross, and the beast kind of reels back, screaming. But Zoe's no punk. Zoe is ready to fight. She draws the machete, which is already covered in the dried blood of 2 humans that she's killed. And she starts to advance on the creature. I'm going to take these 2 tests back to back, and we're going to see... Well, no, I'm going to take 1 test, and then if it doesn't succeed, then we're going to leave, right? Actually, let's talk about this for a second. If I don't succeed at both of these tests, I'm taking 2 damage and 2 horror, and I lose. So if I succeed at the first, I could leave and come back, and then probably succeed next turn. However, if I then take another treachery that deals me damage or horror, I'm in big trouble, so we're going for it. Obviously, if I fail the first one, I'm not gonna, continue. Zoe starts to advance on the beast. She can tell that it was once human, but realizes that it is twisted beyond that with some sort of powers of darkness. She raises the machete and brings it down on the beast. He has 3 fight. I have 4, 5, 6 combat with the keen eye, 7 with the machete. Skull. -1 for each location in play with no encounter card underneath it. There's 4 of them. -4. Still, that's still a hit. So we put 2 damage on the beast. Last action. She's going again. She brings the machete up and down and up and down, hacking away at the creature. Its cries from its many mouths, barely reaching her. 7 versus 3. Cultist, -2. That's another 2 damage from the machete. 6 health per investigator, so Silas Bishop goes in the victory display. And we move to resolution 1. Way too close. I only had 1 sanity. Resolution 1. As you land the finishing blow, the creature's body explodes into hundreds of squirming rope-like appendages, wriggling across the ground and climbing up the walls. You're so startled, you aren't fast enough to prevent them from escaping the room. Even so, whatever that creature was, you're glad it's now dead. In your campaign log, record that the investigators put Silas Bishop out of his misery. I don't think that was Zoe's intention. Put it out of its misery. I think her intention was more like destroy it at any, at any cost. In your campaign log, under Sacrifice to Yog-Sothoth, record the names of each unique card beneath the agenda deck. Each of these cards are removed from players' decks and can't be included. If an investigator with a Necronomicon, each investigator earns experience equal to victory X, 2. Each investigator earns 2 bonus experience as they gain insight into the hidden world of the mythos. That's another 2, so that's 4. Proceed to interlude 2. So, 4 experience. We put Silas Bishop out of his misery, and we've lost someone to sacrificed to Yog-Sothoth. Let's find out who it is. Earl Sawyer. Earl Sawyer, who tended the horse and cattle during Wilbur's absence, had developed a woefully acute case of nerves. That's disappointing. At the same time, that's like probably the person I needed the least, so I feel okay about it. We're gonna go to the survivors. Interlude 2, the survivors. Inside the chamber that contained the terrible beast, you find the missing townsfolk and the others from Arkham. They're bound and shackled. You also find several documents that suggest the creature you found isn't the only one of its kind in Dunwich. Ugh. You free the creature's victims from their bonds, and they offer you their thanks. You begin to plan your next move. For each of the following 5 characters who are not listed under Sacrificed, read the associated passage. When you're done, proceed to Scenario 5. Dr. Henry Armitage. Now, I didn't bring him with us, so he must have shown up on another train. Thankfully, he wasn't on the Essex County Express, because, like, frankly, I don't think he would have made it.
It's far worse than we thought, Dr. Armitage says, pale and trembling. Wilbur Whately was only the beginning. There were many more in Dunwich who knew of the great old ones, and who desired power and knowledge above all else, the earth be damned. I knew I should have burned that wretch's journal, but thanks to its contents, I know how we can stop them. We are the only ones who can. Now quickly, help me with this solution. The powder is the key. Yes, the powder is the only way.
Dr. Henry Armitage survived the Dunwich Legacy. We can add him to our deck, but Zoe doesn't want to. If the power of Ibn Ghazi is not in an investigator's deck, any one investigator may choose to add it. Let's look at it, but I have a feeling that yes, we're going to want to. The powder of Ibn Ghazi says it enters play with X clues, the number of characters who survived, move a clue from it to an exhausted brood of Yog-Sothoth. I wonder what that means. Professor Warren Rice. Professor Rice adjusts his glasses and studies the documents and arcane manuscripts left in the chamber. I thought this nightmare was over and done with, he sighs. But we have a duty to see this through. We have to stop these creatures, or it won't be just Dunwich in trouble. The powder mixture Armitage created to see the creatures will be our saving grace, he explains, and sets off to the task of recreating the powder. We have it, but he's going to make more. If Professor Warren Rice is not an investigator's deck, he may choose to add it to their deck. Let's have a look at these guys. This guy +1 book. No thanks. Don't want that. Francis Morgan. Thank you for everything you've done, Dr. Morgan says, taking count of your provisions and ammunition. Last time we needed some of that strange powder Armitage concocted to even see the beast that terrorized Dunwich. If there's more of those things out there, we're going to need that powder. I think I remember how he made it. The implication is that you wouldn't have rescued all of these people, but the idea that all 3 of them are alive and fine, and they're all like, oh, maybe I can make this powder. Maybe you should make the powder. They're all going off to make the powder separately. We can choose to include Dr. Francis Morgan. 3 cost, +1 combat. Feels good, but I really need the sanity soak, so no. Zebulon Whately. Dunwich has had its fair share of oddities, Zebulon explains to you with a quavering voice, but I ain't never seen anything as sick and twisted as this thing. He gives the creature's remains one last sickened glance before closing the door to the chamber behind him, shuddering. He locks eyes with you, his expression grim. Whoever done this gotta pay. I'll do all I can to help. Zebulon Whately survived the Dunwich Legacy. I may choose to add Zebulon Whately to the deck. I think I will. Let's have a look at this guy. Zebulon Whately's a 3-cost ally with 1 health and 4 sanity, +1 willpower. I can draw a card if I succeed at a willpower test on a treachery card. I mean, there's probably a lot of those. We're taking Zebulon. Zebulon Whately, like, we know the Whateleys are the key to this village. They're like halfway between the decayed and undecayed branches of the families of Dunwich Village. Or of the Whately family, rather, in Dunwich Village. But, like, even though he's, like, a little old, I think Zoe feels a connection with him. He's not a stodgy academic. This guy's lived here all his life, and he knows what they're up against. Earl Sawyer was sacrificed, so that's that. And there you have it. Well, that was Return to Blood on the Altar. Zoe took hits really hard and fast at the beginning of the scenario, but managed to chop her way to victory. I was really scared there for quite some time, actually, because that was a lot of damage and horror that came our way, even with the soak of something worth fighting for, which I'm really happy we had, obviously, it just shows you how quickly these sorts of things can go south. But I think we played it well. We managed to kill everyone that needed to be killed. And 4 people survived the Dunwich Legacy. 3 of them for not being sacrificed, and 1 of them for just showing up on a train later. So there's that. I'm so glad everybody could join me on today's episode of Doomed, the 5th in the return to the Dunwich Legacy. I hope you're all able to join me next time, because this is a scenario that a lot of people will have a lot of thoughts about. Undimensioned and unseen. And the thing behind me right now might give you a bit of a hint as to what we're up against. Hope you can join me next time on Doomed.